Okay, we're continuing in Shul Aleph Perek Tes Vav. We are on Pasuk Zion, I believe. We start Pasuk Zion. I believe we're on Pasuk Zion. Vayach Shul es Amalek, and Shul destroyed Amalek. Chavila, from a place called Chavila, Boach Ashur, approaching a place called Shur, Asher al Pnei Mitzrayim, which is facing Egypt. So you see this battle, remember, was in Arad, which is in the southern part of Israel, and that battle went towards Shur, which is facing Mitzrayim. So we see there's a connection between Amalek and Mitzrayim. See that where Amalek begins, where Mitzrayim ends. And it's interesting, you have the similar words, the words Chavila and Ashur. You have it in Bereshis Perek Chaf Hei Pasuk Yud Ches, and that was having to do with where Yishmael lived, where the Arabs were. And more significantly, you have in Bereshis Perek Beis Pasuk Yud Aleph, where it talks about Chavila as well, where the Zahav is, where the gold is. It was described as a place of gold. And Reb Tzadok, in his Pri Tzadik, in the laws of in Hilchos Pesach, in Mon May, in the pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Turei Zav Na'aseh Lecha Im Nekudas HaKesev. So he brings down a medrash. And the Medrash says, Turei Zav, what are Turei Zav? Towers of gold. Zubis Sayam. This is a reference to the loot that was washed ashore at the Sea of Reeds when the Egyptians were wiped out. And what are Nekudas HaKesev? Zubizas Mitzrayim. It was the loot of Mitzrayim, which is compared to silver. So you see that when it talks about the two loots that came out, we see that when they got washed ashore in the Yam Suf, that was the gold, while the Kesef was when the Biza of Mitzrayim. So, and we know there was, and he continues over there. He says there's a difference between Kesef and Zav. There's a difference in gold and silver. Just like there's a difference in gold and silver, so there was a difference between the loot on the sea and the loot of Mitzrayim, which obviously gold is more precious. So there was much more money that came out in the sea than what came out of Mitzrayim. Okay, what's the significance of that? You'll see in 1 minute. And he says, he said, we can't explain gold and silver that was what merely gold and silver. What do you mean to say? Because when Hashem spoke to Avram Avinu at the covenant between the parts, and he said that your children will be slaves for 400 years and then they'll go out with a rechush kadol, they'll go out with a great bounty, it can't be referring merely to gold and silver as this Medrash is talking about. That's what where did the Jews get their money from when they left Egypt and when they left the Sea of Reeds? That's where all the money came from the Jews. And Hashem said, you're going to go out with a rechush kadol, you're going to go out with a great bounty. So therefore it can't mean that only. So he says what Hashem was hinting to was Ahava and Yira, love and fear. They will go out with the qualities of loving Hashem and fearing Hashem. And that's what it says in the Zohar, that Yira is called Zav, is called gold, and Kesef, from the word Nichsafti, like Cheshek, is Ava, it's love. So silver is the code word for love. The word Kesef, Nichsof, Nichsafti, Kesef, Kisaf, Kisufim, is that you have yearning, you care for, you want, that's love. And Zav is gold. And we understand that gold is the color of fire, and that's what fear is. Yira, Gvura, that's symbolic of Eish, a fire that consumes. It's consuming fire that that represents the fear of Hashem. So, very interesting. So, what are we saying? What's the Medrash really saying? You understand the code of what gold and silver is. Gold is Yiras Hashem, and silver is love of Hashem. So then what was greater, the Biza of the Yam Suf or the Biza of going out of Mitzrayim? What was greater? Well, it's saying that the Yam Suf is gold. So gold is greater than the silver, which is true. First of all, it's true in terms of being the more precious metal. And so it's saying that the Jews went out with fear and love, and the greater thing was the fear and not the love. So the question that he asks is, yeah, but we find everywhere that love is greater than fear. It's greater to love Hashem than to fear Hashem. So how do you explain that? And here it's saying, no, that the fear, because it's the code word of gold, is greater than the silver, which is the code word of love. And he says, and it is true that gold is the more precious commodity from silver. And you'd think the opposite. Silver is representing the love of Hashem. Hashem should have made silver a more precious commodity. So that's his question. So he says, well, the Torah says in the famous pasuk in Sefer Dvarim, Ma Hashem Elokecha derish mimcha ki im li yiras Hashem. What does Hashem ask from you? But to fear Hashem. So he brings down in this form that really the main thing a person has to first work on is Yiras Shamayim. That's the first thing you have to work on. You have to work on Yiras Shamayim. When you work on Yiras Shamayim and you've acquired Yiras Shamayim, then Hashem really gives you the gift of Ava. He gives you the gift of love. And he gives all kinds of proofs of that. By Avram Avinu, it says, Ki ata yadati ki yira, that you're Yirei Hashem. Now that I know that you're Yiras Hashem, so that was the thing that you worked on. So in other words, it's harder to develop your Yiras Hashem as much as the Ava, because that Ava usually comes as a gift. Therefore, what you work on is more precious. And therefore, in terms of a commodity, so therefore gold, which represents Yiras Hashem, is the more valuable thing. Even though when you are gifted the Ava puts you on a higher level. It's a higher level to love Hashem than to fear Hashem, but that love comes as a gift after all the hard work of the year that you have of Hashem, in the ultimate sense. So therefore, and it says by Kriyas Yamsuf, it says Vayiru ha'ames Hashem, that the people came to fear Hashem, came to that level. They came to that Yiras Hashem, so that is the higher level than the gifts of Avos Hashem. So those ideas of what the fire, what the gold represents, so really the fear of Hashem and the love of Hashem, this represents what the Jewish people developed. As you recall, we left off last week, and we talked about what was the main component of Mitzrayim and Amalek. In what ways were they similar? They were similar that they resisted the concept of to be mashchu, to be drawn after anything. If you recall, we said that they didn't want to be drawn after Hashem. They didn't want to be drawn after Hashem like lambs are drawn after the shepherd. That was the point. The whole difference between us and those nations. And they wouldn't be drawn after anything. Now, Mitzrayim, less so of a problem than Amalek, but both bad. Mitzrayim, we know because we're Meitzarim, which are boundaries, which means I won't let you cross my boundaries. Hashem, you won't get into my boundaries of Mitzrayim. We're too constrained that we're not going to be allowed, we're not going to be pulled after you, Hashem. And Amalek is even worse than that, because Amalek comes from the contraction Am Malak, the nation that Malika means when you sever the neck of an animal, a bird, off of the body. It's Malika, what the Kohen takes with his sharp, fingernail, and he separates the head from the rest of the body. So as if they're severing their body from Hashem. There aren't even boundaries. There's total separation. So Mitzrayim, they resist Hashem through luxuries, through excesses, through that kesef, through that indulgence in love and immorality and all those things. When you're into all that, you don't want to get drawn to Hashem. That was Mitzrayim is about. While Amalek, on the other hand, They were the power of what? They were the power of leitzonus, mocking, cynicism, chutzpah, brazen scoffers, which is not so much, it's an anti-yira, the opposite of looking at the reality. Yira, we explained many times, Yiras Hashem really means what? Is to yira, to see the realities, to mamish see the reality, see the emerging reality, see the true values of things in life. And Amalek is the leitz who tears down all kinds of values. And therefore that the way to defeat Amalek is with the Yiras Hashem much more so. So therefore it says, for example, in the Mishle it says, leitz takei, leitz, the cynic, the scoffer. The solution to deal with a scoffer is you beat him up. You don't try to convince him of anything. He doesn't believe in any values. You cannot convince a scoffer. You just destroy a scoffer. While the fool, yarim, you try to get him with cunning, get him with smartness. And we say leitz takei, that's Amalek. Pesi yarim is Yisro. What does that mean? Yisro, we say also Pesi. A Pesi means one who can be seduced. Pesi yamin l'chol dover. Shlomo says the Pesi can believe anything. Meaning to say, a Pesi means someone who wants to be moved. Now, it could be a very negative thing. A Pesi means you believe anything people tell you. You're naive. But in a positive sense, that's what Yisro was. Yisro, when he saw the Kriyas Yamsov, he saw that. He saw the Yira that the Jewish people saw. And, you see the sea splits, you got to start seeing reality now. And he was willing to see that Yira, and that swept him to Hashem. That he allowed himself to be drawn to Hashem. Yisro came to life with an open mind. He said, let me see what's there. He tried this avodah zarah, that avodah zarah. He was open to anything, but also open to the truth. So when the truth came in Kriyas Yamsuf, then Yisro says, now I understand this is the true God. And that's what he said again. The Yisro was Reishis Gerim. He's the beginning of converts. So the convert is the one who comes to approach Judaism with an open mind. You're willing to be pulled to Hashem. Now, of course, when Amalek saw Kriyas Yamsuf, which means the Yira, the gold that the Jews developed, that's when they attacked the Jewish people. And that's why Amalek is Reishis Goyim, the beginning of the Goyim, the ones who don't want to hear that message. So where Egypt's resistance ends, see, Mitzrayim got knocked off. It can't be that there's not somebody against the Jews at that point. So you see, as Egypt ends, they're totally wiped out. And then the next big event is Matan Torah. So what happens? Amalek is the next one to contend with. So it was the Bizas Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was the silver. That was the love of Hashem, as it were. In other words, Egypt represented the silver as we left Egypt, where that misdirected love. And then finally, when they crossed the Yam Suf, Egypt's done with. Now we got to look forward, and that is the gold, and the gold represents Yira, and that's going to be the way we're going to have to destroy Amalek. It was the power of Yira is how we're going to destroy Amalek. And so Amalek is the idea of Yira improperly used. It's the improper use of Yira. It's the anti-Yira. And therefore it causes a fire as well, but it's the opposite fire. It's a fire of destruction. So the only way you destroy that fire is you fight fire with Yira Shamayim. So Yira fights Yira, as it were. So therefore, when the Navi here says that he fought Amalek and he went to Mitzrayim, and Chavila is the place, as we said in the beginning, is where the Zohar is found, where the gold is found. So Shaul needs to have the full amount of Yira to defeat Amalek. That's what he needed. That's what the pasuk is hinting to over here. He said, "Mechavila boacha shur," and we quoted the psukim saying that that's where the gold is found, and that's where he had to find that gold. And unfortunately, he was chomel. He had mercy on them. It was the improper use of Ava in the wrong place. As that's what Chazal say. First we have to have a king, then we have to destroy Amalek, then we have to build the Beis Hamikdash. Again, the concept is the king is the Nagid, the king draws the Jewish people to Hashem. They're counted like sheep, and that's what he did. He counted them by sheep, And he's trying to draw them to Hashem. And now you've got to destroy Amalek, means you got to use the power of Yira to destroy Amalek. And then finally you build the Beis HaMikdash. That's the gift. That's the gift that Hashem gives you. And that's the gift of Ava. That's the gift of love that Hashem gives you over there. So that's how we connect Mitzrayim to Amalek, where they both resist Hashem. They're the antithesis of sheep. And therefore, what is the antidote to that? And this battle took place on Erev Pesach. It had. If they were counting sheep, it was very close to Pesach. If they were counting sheep for the Korban Pesach, in other words, he was giving, here's going to be your animal for the Korban Pesach. It was within a couple of days. Had to be within a couple of days of Pesach. So that's the antidote, is the Korban Pesach. Total submission to Hashem. So you see all the symbolism here that Hashem is the Dafka asking that Amalek should get wiped out right before Pesach. Because that's what the whole Indian of Pesach is how you develop this year's Hashem. And figure, if you're getting all yourself spiritually ready for Pesach, and you have to be the sheep, so show you have to totally listen to what Hashem wants, and there's nothing else for you to talk about. And that gold represents the year's Hashem, and that's how we're supposed to defeat them. Unfortunately, he didn't. Okay, continuing. Pasuk Ches. Vayispos es Agag melech Amalek chai. So he captures Agag, the king of Amalek, and he was alive. Ves kol ha'am echarim lefi charav. And the entire nation he destroyed by the sword. Pasuk Tes. Vayachmol Shol v'ha'am. And Shol and the people had mercy al Agag. On Agag. Didn't kill him right away. V'al-meitav hatzon v'habakar. And of the choices of the sheep and the cattle. V'hamishnim v'alakarim. The Mishim Karim is like the second class sheep and cattle. It was the best and the next quality below that. Right? V'al kol hatov, and all the good that was there. V'lo avachram, they didn't want to destroy those. V'chol malacha means v'zav and amas, but the other malach means the other sheep, the other stuff that wasn't so good. Osahachrim, they destroyed all that. It was the best and the second best quality they kept of the sheep and cattle, but the other ones they destroyed. So now there's an important malbim over here that explains the second critical mistake Shol makes and why Hashem doesn't accept his tshuva. We already said, remember, the question that's been around is, Shol makes a mistake, Hashem doesn't accept his tshuva. David makes mistakes and more mistakes, Hashem accepts his tshuva. So the first one we already said was because Shol's mistake was in the area of royalty. When you make the mistake in royalty, you can't have royalty anymore. David's mistake was not in royalty. That was the one that he says. Now he's going to point out to the second one over here. But first he explains, for those who are linguists over here, there's three words that seem to all mean mercy. You have vayachmol, you have chomal, you have chus, and rachem. Those are three words that all seem to mean have mercy. Chus v'rachem aleinu means chus v'rachem aleinu. Chus, have mercy. V'rachem, have pity, have mercy. And chemla rabba is mercy. The three words can all mean the same thing. So the Malbim explains on Pasuk Tes the differences between them. But first you have to know there is a difference between the generically three words Chesed, Din, and Rachamim. Kindness, judgment, and mercy. So usually Chesed, the simple meaning of Chesed is complete Chesed, complete kindness. There's nothing else mixed in. It's complete kindness. Din is, complete judgment. Rachamim, we said, it's really Tiferes, is a combination of Chesed and Din, which means on many levels. Chesed, we know, for example, is you can do Chesed to poor people and to rich people. Chesed is regardless of the receiver. Chesed is an inner directed and inner driven feeling. Chesed, a person wants to do Chesed. It doesn't really matter who the Chesed is. It is an internally motivated midah. Rachamim is not. It's an externally motivated reason. Meaning to say, only when there is a reason does the person operate with Rachamim. And more than that, so on the one hand, I've chosen to do chesed, but there's also a din aspect, because din means judgment. What's right arouses that I should have chesed for this person. Based on what I see, the din is I should have rachamim. I judge the situation. I see a very impoverished person that tugs at my heart. Oh, I see that I have to, by law, judgment is I should do chesed to this person. Chesed doesn't need it to be motivated by I should be doing this. Chesed means I do it if the person deserves it or not. Rachamim is saying, well, if I judge that they deserve it, then I will bless it. That's where Rachamim is a combination of chesed and din. And we're going to see Shul's sin of chemla. We're going to see in a minute where this comes from. But once you have this idea, so now I'm going to read out the Malbim, because some of the lines, there's very important ideas. He says there's a difference between using the word chamal, and that's the verb that's used in this pasuk. Vayachamol shol va'ab. They didn't pick chus and they didn't pick rachem. So you have to understand why, and it's very significant, because this becomes the second reason why Hashem will not accept his tshuva over here. He says, rachamim, rachem, he says, lo yurak me adam la adam. You only find the word rachamim when it's for people. A person having mercy on a person. Why? Where it's very hard for a person to see another person being lost or in pain. So rachamim, as we said, is the mixture of chesed and din, but it's always towards a person. Because when you see something bad to a person, you feel bad for the person. And you have to have chesed to that person. That's when we use rachamim. That was not the word that was used over here. He says chemla and chusa you find on anything. It's not necessarily just because of a person. He says there's a difference in them. He says chusa tia mitzad sarko el adavar. Chus is when there's a usefulness for a thing. We say a person has chas on his money, v'kelev, and his property. But Hashem Kiyah, since he owns them. So there it's not really from an aspect of mercy. Chus, it's I got money, so I'm not going to blow my money, so I'm chas on my money. So is that mercy? It's not really mercy. It's not the same thing when one person's feeling mercy. Oh, the guy's suffering. It's not like my money is suffering. It's worth something, and I don't want to give up something that's worth money. So chus, I don't know what the English word would be. That having mercy on my money, not having mercy on your money. It's just something I don't want to waste. I don't want to lose it. So that's something where you just it's something that because it has a usefulness. Why waste a useful thing? Waste not, want not. It's like waste. We first just take money and he sees money is someone stealing his money. I'm going to let it go. So they use the word chas. Adam chas amamono. Person, is concerned about that his money shouldn't be wasted. Something that can be used for a useful purpose shouldn't be wasted. V'chemla, what's chemla? That's one we're worried about. Tiagam al davar she'ein lo to'elos mimenu. It could be something where you're not getting a benefit from. It's not even like a level of money. But he decided in his mind, it's not fitting to destroy this. It's better to keep it. Let's say a flower, a nice pretty flower. Let's chop off the flower. Don't chop off the flower. Why? You get rachmanis on the flower? No. Is it like money? No. But it's a pretty thing. Why should you just tear off a pretty thing like that? So then we would use the word of chemla. In other words, it's something that has a value in and of itself. Chemla means you don't want to destroy it, you want to take care of it because it's a beautiful thing in and of itself. You have a chemla on the National Archives. It doesn't really do anything, We say that a home from 20 years ago, what do they say? They make it historical. You have compassion on it. You don't have compassion on it. Oh, nebuch, it's suffering.
In English, they use the term more. It would be a shame to destroy it, but it's like that.
Yeah, it would be a shame to destroy it.
See that in Moda, no?
What?
Moda,
yeah, b'chemla. You restore ourselves. We'd have to look into each one how this fits in now, right? So we're a very valuable thing. You restore us because we are valuable, not because you had rachmanis on us. Because a human Jewish soul is valuable. We return our soul because it's a beautiful thing. The Jewish soul is a beautiful thing. Not just say that Rahmanas on us. Oh, you had mercy. Oh, Nebuch. You weren't dying. You weren't dying. He said, oh, Nebuch, I have mercy. No, he's giving it because you're worth it. You're worth it. A Jew is worth it. That's why I bring him back to life. It's a beautiful thing, a Jewish soul. The dafka, that's what it is. It's not, we need rachamim when we're in trouble. I am in trouble. Chus v'rachem aleinu. I'm going to say Chus v'rachem aleinu. Rachem, number one, is because we're in a very bad state, and even chus, we're like your property. Be ashamed to waste us. So, and that's when we're saying Shema Kolenu, listen to our voices. We're pleading before you, but we don't say Chemla there. But Chemla, you bring our souls back to Chemla because we're very precious. It's already 6:30. Okay, I couldn't finish the Malbim. All right, okay, tomorrow.
Ready answering our question.
We'll continue with it. But you can already see what's going on. That Shaul saved them because of Chemla, because he thought that they were valuable. He thought there was some value to Amalek. That's already. If you think that something has value that Hashem said I'd say has no value, then you're in trouble. Okay, we'll finish that part off tomorrow.
How could you have Chemla on the